Thank you so much for joining us today. We are having a webinar called We Are Resilient, 6 resilient skills to help you be a better parent. And I'm so happy you can join us. Before we get any further, I would just like to say thank you for being you. Thank you for handling all the challenges that come up, for taking care of the people around you, and for caring. We know that makes a huge difference in everyone's life. I'd like to introduce myself before we get any further. My name is Meri McCoy-Thompson. I am the COO of Dovetail Learning, and I have 2 adult children, one who's engaged, Meri, and I also care for my 2 aging parents. My mom has Alzheimer's, so there's an additional challenge in that, and my stepfather's 96. So we're super happy that they're walking in this photo. And of course, I had 2 lovely kitties. So lots going on in my life. And there's the Dovetail Learning. Our mission is strengthening resilience in adults and children, and our vision is a world of kind, connected human beings. All of our materials are open educational materials, which means you can download them and use them for free, adapt them for your community, and share them out. All we ask is that you give attribution where you use our work and collaborate. Share back any of your innovations back. We'd love to see what other people are doing with our work, and you can find all of it at dovetaillearning.org. I will be sharing these slides at the end of the presentation, so and also the video, so you can share all of that as well. An overview of our agenda today. It's really about supporting your resilience. We know as a parent, the most important thing that you bring into parenting, besides the love you have for your children, is your own resilience. And supporting that is really important. So we're going to acknowledge the challenges of parenting. We're going to talk about how the We Are Resilient approach can help, look a little bit at what can get in the way of resilient, and then we'll focus on 6 skills on how we can become more resilient. So the 6 skills we'll be talking about are noticing myself, breathing mindfully, letting go, finding gratitude, positive reframing, and nurturing myself. Some of these skills are skills you probably use already. Our intention here is to help you be more intentional about using the skills. Sometimes when we hear about the power of something, we make a renewed commitment to it, and that's what we're hoping for you today. So before we get any further, I'd like just to talk a little bit about the challenges that we face as parents, and would love if you added any of your own to the chat. We may have changes in our relationship. I know, at some one point you have a little baby, and the next moment you have a toddler, and the next moment you have a 5-year-old, and all of those are very different. And of course, you might have a child who loves green beans one day, and the next moment just throws the green beans on the floor. And trying to deal with all those challenges is really complicated and can challenge our resilience. We have a lot of emotions when we're a parent. Sometimes we're joyous with the fun things that we're doing with them or the fun experiences they bring into our life. And other times we're frustrated that they don't do what they say they were going to do, or they can't do something, or it takes so much time to do whatever they're trying to do. Other times we lie awake at worry. Maybe our child's not meeting the developmental milestones that the pediatrician says they're supposed to. Maybe they're not reading like the other kids. Maybe they're falling down. Maybe they're not succeeding in school or at sports in the way that they want to. Maybe they're having friendship troubles. Maybe they're getting into serious things like drug addiction or suicidal ideation. There's a lot of worry and anxiety that can happen with children. Sometimes it's just a lack of knowledge. Like something happens with our kids, like we don't have a clue, like where are we supposed to find out information about what we can do with these people, these little people that we're charged with caring for. And sometimes we have to pivot so quickly. They're in school, now they're not in school. What are we going to do with them? All the different things that pivoting requires. Sometimes it's just the financial and time burdens that children require. They require a lot. And as much as we love them, sometimes these challenges just are hard on our resilience and we don't know what to do. So I just want to acknowledge that they're real. Those challenges are real and they can be hard. And knowing that, sometimes knowing that we're not alone on our challenges can help. I also want to acknowledge that sometimes parenting and life in general can feel like a storm, like, oh, one thing after another, my child needs this, my child needs that, this is happening, that's happening. It can feel really difficult. Other times we recognize the miracle of life, the child who's standing in front of us, still standing maybe after a medical emergency, or maybe a really friendship thing that went sour. There's a lot of things that can happen. And sometimes we're just like the joy of holding our child's hand, looking at our child's face. That can be the miracle of life. And We Are Resilient is really understanding there are two ways to living. You can live as if nothing is a miracle, or you can live as everything is a miracle. And we're asking that, acknowledging the storm, yes, it's real and important, but also acknowledging the miracle, having these little beings that are in our care. Before we get any further, since the program approach is We Are Resilient, let's talk a little bit about what resilient is. Resilience is the ability to adapt and respond to meet challenges effectively. It's really important to realize our resilience will be higher or lower in different situations. We can be going along making the peanut butter sandwich that's going to be taken to school, and our kid can come in crying, and another kid come in, and then maybe they're fighting with each other, or maybe they broke something or dropped something or forgot something. There's a million reasons they could be crying, and suddenly we're like, oh, I don't have time to deal with this. How can I help? And we're feeling really off center. And then maybe we deal with that crisis, we get the kids to school and everything is centered again. And then maybe we get a phone call, this is happening. It just goes up and down, up and down. And that's just the way life is. I have to tell you, we're never going to take all of that away, but we can strengthen our resilience through the practice of specific skills. And understanding that can actually be life transforming, both for ourselves and for our children. So understanding there's specific things we can do to make all the peaks and valleys that happen in life just a little bit smoother is really important. Resilience is an ordinary superpower. It does not come from rare and special qualities, but it comes from the everyday magic of being human. And understanding that helps us tap into our own inner wisdom, which we all have. It's why we call this approach We Are Resilient, because first and foremost, we want to acknowledge that we all are resilient. We Are Resilient is practical skills for managing stress, strengthening relationships, and communicating more effectively. It helps us build the families that we want and become the parents that we want. Just a quick overview of the approach. Today's webinar, we're just going to deal with topics very quickly. We have a lot of other trainings that we can talk about that you can find on our website, actually, that go more in depth with what you can do with these skills and patterns. The cultural patterns, they're how we view the world, and our protective patterns, that's how we react to the world. We're going to talk about them very briefly today. We have 3 sets of skills that we talk about in the approach: centering, connecting, and collaborating. And together, that's how we create the world that we want. That's how we create the families that we want and the communities that we want. And we also have 3 mindsets: the mindset of curiosity, choice, and courage. These guide us in using our patterns and skills. So just an idea that there's a lot more to the approach that you can find and look at, whether you look at our downloaded materials, our webinars, or other courses. Also to know that We Are Resilient helps you in your self-care. It helps you navigate your personal daily stresses and improve relationships. And it also can help you guide others with resilient skills and awareness for well-being. The most important thing is how we teach the We Are Resilient approach to others. How do we become this change agent? We practice it ourselves. This is not something we're learning to give to our children. This is something we're learning for ourselves, because when we practice it, and using micro habits are key, then we can model it so others can learn from us, and we can coach using curiosity, compassionate questions, and encouragement. We know children learn from modeling. We know that's how they learn most of what they learn in life. So we have to practice it ourselves if we want our children to get it. So what can get in the way of the resilience? We're going to do this very briefly, but it's important to acknowledge what can get in the way. So we have a stress event that can come in. Maybe it's that phone call from your child's teacher. Then we have a reaction. Oh no, I didn't want this for my kid. I wish my child was behaving appropriately. And we move into a protective pattern, whatever it is, and we lose our cool. And it can take such a long time to feel calm again. We can feel really depleted. Doesn't feel good. The tip that we're suggesting today is that you notice your protective patterns. We call them protective patterns because they can be helping or they can hurt, and it's important to look at them. What are these protective patterns? How we react to the world? Everyone has them. We all have them, and we learn them as children usually. Maybe their personality, maybe their environment, maybe they come from our family, and that's how we react to the world when we feel unsafe. This unsafety could be maybe socially, economically, physically, all sorts of different ways of feeling unsafe. And when we feel a little bit unsafe, we have these protective patterns that come up. The protective patterns that we've named are distrusting, hypervigilant, hyper caretaking, avoiding, defending, and attacking. For all of these patterns, sometimes you might use them in different situations with different people. And some of us have our ones that we use more often. For myself, a lot of times I might be avoiding something. A situation can happen. I'm just like, oh, I'm going to pretend I didn't see that. I don't know about it. Other times I'll just verbally attack. Why is this happening? What is going on here? And I move into that mode. And I can see this in my children. My daughter tends to do more avoiding. My son tends to do more attacking. They probably learned some of that from me and some of that just from their personality. But understanding that we all have these protective patterns, these ways of approaching situations, and that sometimes they help us and sometimes they don't, are really important. What does avoiding look like? Just for an example, it might be withdrawing or retreating. Maybe I don't answer the phone when I see it's the school calling. Oh, I can't deal with another phone call from the school about bad behavior. Sometimes it's toxic positivity. Oh, it's all going to be fine. It's all going to be fine. I know if my daughter was always worried when she was young, I would be sometimes just toxic positive. I would be like, oh, it's all fine, and not really help her deal with her emotions. Sometimes it's numbing, like, oh, a lot of people use addictive behaviors. That's because they're numbing, whether they're shopping all the time, watching TV, overeating, working, substance misuse. All that can happen when we're avoiding. Avoiding can be helpful because it can de-escalate a situation. Maybe I shouldn't answer the phone when the school calls because maybe I'm just going to yell at the person on the other end because I'm frustrated what's happening. Sometimes it creates a safe space which protects us from harm or avoids perpetuating previous trauma. But we know it can harm. It shuts down access to our own needs. It prevents finding lasting solutions. I have to deal with whatever's ever on the other end of that phone call from the school. Sometimes it can create loneliness and reduce connection. And all of our protective patterns have that same thing. They can help us or they can hurt us. When we notice the protective patterns, though, we can wonder and assess, is that helpful? Am I using it at the right time? Yes, I shouldn't be taking the call from the school if I'm in an important meeting, for example, but maybe I need to call them back later. All different ways that the resilient skills can help us and the protective patterns can help us. We just have to pay attention to what's working for us and what's not. So what are these skills that we can help with resilience? The centering skills, these are for our own personal resilience. It's how we create the world we want. The power of centering. We are centered if we feel grounded, if we can handle change. When we are centered, we reduce our own personal stress. It improves our well-being and how we interact in the world. We can parent more effectively. If my child comes to me with a situation, which happens every day, then we can parent more effectively if we're already in a calm, centered place, right? And we can also connect with them and collaborate. We can ask curious questions about it instead of attacking or other kinds of things. And we can collaborate together on the solution. Okay, so you forgot the materials you need for our project. What are we together going to do to help solve your problem, right? It's not my problem as the parent, but maybe our child needs to collaborate with us to come up with the best solution for their personal challenges. We can handle all of that when we're more centered. So these centering skills, noticing myself, breathing mindfully, letting go, finding gratitude, positive reframing, and nurturing myself. Noticing myself, our first centering skill. Our tagline here is pause. What's the cause? It's really, if we're curious about it, thinking about what am I noticing, sensing, and feeling? What emotion am I having right at this moment? So often we go through life and we're not even paying attention to our emotions. At least for me, I wish I did more noticing myself when I had my children were younger and they were with me all the time. I think I could have been a better parent, and that's why I love teaching this material. Noticing myself involves the thoughts, the words that I'm saying to myself. Am I stupid? I should have done this. Or is it positive things? My body's feeling, am I tense because they've come to me with a problem? Or am I relaxed? Am I sad? Am I happy? Am I elated? All my protective patterns that might be coming up, my general state of being, just understanding and paying attention to our emotions, really important. These emotional signals have so much to tell us. Neuroscientist Antonio Damasio reminds us that humans are really feeling machines that think. I know in our culture, I was raised to like really focus on my brain. Like, what am I thinking? What am I doing? Doing and thinking seem to be the most important things. And feeling was sort of maybe something I didn't focus too much on. And I certainly didn't honor in my children. So understanding that really we're feeling machines and understanding all the signals that our bodies are sending us about our feelings, that can help us be the people that we want to be and help us make the connections that we're hardwired to make. I know for our children, the most important thing they want to do is to be in good relationship with us and to be connecting with us. They're hardwired that way. And we are too. The most important thing we can give our kids is a good relationship. And understanding our emotions is really important part of that relationship and being able to do that in our most authentic selves. Emotion, what stops me from noticing myself? A lot of times it's easier to just keep on going, too busy. Oh, I've got to get this done, that done. How can I possibly spend time thinking about it? Sometimes we're afraid of negative emotions. I can't afford the time and energy to go there. I don't want to remember my pain. I might have to do something about it. I don't think I can change it. Just a few days ago, I was feeling very sad and I didn't really want to think about that sadness. But when I was able to get in the pool, I like to swim, I was able to block out other things and really focus on the sadness. And it was really good for me because being able to be sad for 20 minutes, I was able to move through it. Emotions matter because they're the glue that hold us together. Riding the waves of emotions can be scary. I know when you're, especially with small children, those emotions can feel so big. And sometimes they can feel that way for ourselves too. But when we lean in and ride that wave, feel the sadness, feel the anger, we learn from experience that the wave ends and we walk again. It's a really, really important skill for our children. It's an important skill for ourselves. We can't teach it to our children if we're not doing it ourselves. We learn so much from our emotions. If we're angry, an important boundary or value has been violated. So if my children do something that makes me angry and I notice that I'm angry, then I'm able to speak about it in terms of the value that has been violated. And we can have a conversation about that information that I've received. And if I'm happy, it signals what I value and love. I can tell my children, I love being with you. That's why I'm so joyous. If I'm frustrated at their behavior or my behavior, I might need to alter my expectations or change what I'm doing so I'm not continuing being frustrated. I was frustrated my son wasn't turning his homework. So we had to change what I'm doing. Just asking every day, are you turning in your homework? Obviously was not helping. So I needed to change what I was doing so that would work better. Guilt, I violated my own standards and need to shift my behavior. Satisfied, I met my own expectations or goals. Emotions have two types of categories. Sometimes it's helpful to think about these. It's just one way that researchers have thought about emotions. And all these emotions on the left, sometimes we think about them as negative, but if we think about them as narrow emotions, that was helpful for me at least, because they focus on it. Okay, I'm angry that my son is not turning his homework in, for example. When I focus on it, then I can think about what can I do about that? Or I'm sad. I was sad about a lot of things, but maybe another thing. I'm discouraged that we haven't made more progress against guns in this country. And By feeling, okay, I'm discouraged, what can I do to change that feeling? It helps me focus on that, right? Broad emotions, on the other hand, are expansive. They're creative, they're generative, and that's wonderful, but they give us different kinds of energy, and understanding that and how we can use the information from that is super helpful. Also understanding by naming a lot of different types of emotions and really being granular, we have a better emotional life when we're able to relate to our children better. Our children are able to relate to others better when they understand all the different types of emotions that might be happening. There's science behind all of our skills. The science recap on this is that emotions are signals from their body. They impact our learning ability and social functions. If our child is unhappy in the school, they will not be able to learn very well, and their social function will be modified. So figuring out what emotion they're getting and why is super important. Practicing noticing myself can enhance neuroplasticity and increase resilience. So when we're actually listening to our emotions and paying attention to them, our brains are functioning better and increases our resilience. How do we practice this how do we practice noticing myself? We encourage micro practices. So just small little moments in which we're doing this noticing myself, maybe in the shower or the bathroom, after an intense parenting moment, whether it's because the baby is crying or because the teenager has wrecked the car. Both of those things have happened. Being able to notice myself, okay, this is what I'm feeling. Take a few moments to do that. In the morning, after waking up or while making a coffee. Those are the times just to incorporate into your life. Try it. Breathing mindfully, another really important skill. We breathe deeply and we feel it completely. If we're curious about the emotion, it's thinking about where in my body do I feel my breath. This is a skill we can use anytime, all the time, being intentional about our breathing. And that's really feeling it in our body and feeling the sensation. I breathe into the area of my heart to calm myself. I trust my heart and rest my mind. We're just going to take 3 deep breaths right now. So feel it coming into your nose. Hold it for a few seconds. Feel it filling up your belly. And then pushing it out your belly. Pushing it all the way out through your mouth, through your nose. Take another breath, feel it coming in, feel it into your lungs. Feel it filling up your lungs, filling up your belly. Pushing it out. And one more deep breath, fill your lungs. Fill your belly. Hold for a little bit and push it out. Just that 15 seconds of breathing deeply can make us feel better. There's a neuroscience way of the reason this works. There's a biological reason. We have a sympathetic nervous system, which causes us stress, anxiety, and cortisol. And we have a parasympathetic nervous system, which can help us self-regulate and feel calmer. And the vagus nerve, which runs from our amygdala in our brain through our lungs and our heart, we can use breathing mindfully to control the vagus nerve and help our brain. All of this science really helps me with the breathing mindfully. So it's not just something that somebody told us to do, but our bodies are made to be intentional about breathing as a way of calming ourselves. It's a wonderful skill that's attached to us. Ooh, don't know where that happened. Okay. Science recap. What does breathing mindfully do for me? It de-escalates an emotional reaction. It can reduce our heart rate and connects our brain to our heart. So I invite you to just try it. Try it on the way to work, stoplights. Try it before, during, or after an intense parenting moment. I know I'm going to have a conversation with my daughter about she's not allowed to go out too late at night. How does that feel? I know it's going to be intense. Take a few deep breaths. Or I just had an argument with my toddler about what they were doing. Try to do a few deep breaths. When we model for our kids, taking some time to breathe mindfully and for ourselves, we can have a better relationship with them. Letting go is another really important skill. It's setting free what burdens me. If we're curious about it, it's really thinking in every situation, what would be helpful for me to let go of? Maybe it's an expectation. Maybe it's attachment to an outcome. Maybe it's a judgment, or what is not in my control. Is there a larger value or goal that will help me let go of this issue? There's so many things that are outside of our control. And sometimes we get all wrapped up in what we think we can control things, and we get all wrapped up. But real strength is not in control. It's knowing when to let go. And there's a lot of ways we can practice this, but science tells us that it increases our cognitive flexibility. It helps us be better at problem solving and creating new directions. There are good reasons not to let go of some attitudes and experiences. And then we have to use our curiosity and power of choice in thinking about that. Letting go, you can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending. I know for me, there's a lot of things sometimes in my shame suitcase that I had to just let go of. I had to let go of, if my child wasn't turning their homework in, for example, or I had to let go of a lot of things that were not in my control. And teaching our children to let go. Maybe the kid next door didn't invite our child to their party. Like letting go activity. What are the greater value that we can get from letting go? Sometimes that small things, like I'm going to let go that the dishwasher wasn't unloaded like the way I want it to be. So many opportunities to let go because I wanted to have a better relationship with my children. So thinking about those things can really help. Finding gratitude. I know this is one that I actually did when my children were young. I was trained in my faith tradition to be a grateful person, and growing gratitude really improves my attitude. There's a lot of science on here. What am I grateful for in this moment, myself, others, or life? It can make a huge difference. It improves our sleep. It increases neurochemicals such as dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin. And the gratitude benefit improve over time. So I know for myself, when my son was younger in particular, he had a lot of behaviors that were hard for me, and I was trying to figure out how to deal with it. And catch him being good was one thing that really worked for me. So being grateful for all the times that he did have behavior that I approved of, and he did say things that really made me feel warm and fuzzy, and we worked together. Well, the more I was grateful for him on those times, the more I could be the better parent for him on the things that were challenging. Finding gratitude, the more we can find grateful moments for the small things in our children's lives, the better parent we can be. And helping them feel grateful for life will also be a big thing that you can pass on to them. Positive reframing. This is all about changing the view for a new you. Our words shape our reality, and they are based on stories we tell ourselves about the world or others. This is why reframing is crucial. It can help you change and shape the reality that you want. It's really about how can I see the situation from a different perspective. You can look at the situation and see if there are more useful ways to look at it. How can mistakes be turned into learning? Obstacles be turned into opportunities? Somebody's negativity being turned into misunderstanding? Just 2 examples. My son, I think he was 4th grade, and somebody dared him to eat some slugs. And he came home and he told us about it. And we're like, what a great learning opportunity for you. Instead of being so frustrated, he would do something so stupid. And he learned a lot from it. Like, I'm not going to try things just because people dare me to. My son also participated in a lot of sports, and he was not a strong person in sports. He had a lot of failures, baseball and football and swimming and wrestling and whatever else you can think of. He tried, and he was not super successful in any of them. The positive reframing around this was that he learned that he can take risks and be okay. And as an adult, he started his own company, does a lot of daring things in his career. And it was just a really good way to see that all the obstacles that he faced, he learned how he turned them into opportunities. So I just invite you to look at the things and obstacles in your life. The more you can reinterpret them in more positive ways, your children can learn that reframing alters our physical reactions. It's empowering, and it does include self-compassion. The micro practice I invite you to do here is, what's the most empowering story I can tell myself about the situation? When something happens, really digging into being empowering about it can make a big difference. Our last skill, and somehow probably the most important for you all, and it's nurturing myself. For better health, I nurture myself. Somehow we think that we don't need to do this, but how can I nurture my body's emotions, mind, and spirit? Am I practicing self-compassion? How can I nurture my sense of joy? The reality is you can't parent or do anything else in life if you don't take care of you. Your children will not have the parent they need to have in life if you don't take care of yourself. And that's everything from physical, intellectual, emotional, social, and spiritual. Underlying it all, nurturing myself means loving myself. When you nurture yourself, you're showing your children that you're valuable and that you love yourself. And that's what you want them to do when they grow up. You don't want them growing up and running themselves ragged and killing themselves for this, that, and the other and having no time for anything. I know it often feels like you have no time to nurture yourself. That's the hardest thing about being a parent. I know when I was a child, my mother took time to nurture herself. She came home, she was a single mom, 4 kids. She would come home from work and she would just exercise for a little while and take a nap. And when I was a middle schooler, I had some resentment about that. I'm like, oh, she's not available for me. But I learned so much about that it was okay to take care of myself as a parent. And that modeling I brought into my own parenting. I think it makes me a better parent. It makes my children appreciate that they need to nurture themselves and love themselves to be the people they need to be. It improves all sorts of things if we nurture ourselves. We have a nurturing myself bingo I will send to all participants just to try. You can do something yourself. I'll send you a blank one, do it something, but just try, make a commitment to yourself that you're going to love yourself. So your children are going to have the parent they need, and your children are going to learn that as adults, it's important to take care of themselves. So I invite you for all these skills, just choose 1 or 2 to practice. You can't do all of them at once, but think about 1 or 2, think about the materials, revisit them. Welcome to our website. The other thing I want to end on is our children or other family members can be the best teachers of how we can be the best versions of ourselves. They teach us so much. When we notice how we respond to them and we notice our protective patterns, we learn, oh, maybe that's helpful. Maybe it's not. Maybe I want to be a better person. And when we're practicing our resilience skills for ourselves and with them, they teach us how to be the best version we can be of ourselves. A good phrase to think about sometimes is, I'm not my most resilient self at this moment. Just sharing it out loud can help our children know, okay, right now mom's a little off, so maybe I'll come back another time with whatever problem I have. And what pattern can I honor or resilience skill can I choose right now? Giving our families this common language about what resilience is, what it's not, can be so helpful for them. We have a lot of upcoming training options. We have free digital resources. We have circles, trainings, or webinars that you're welcome to join. You're also welcome to email me. If you have any questions, I'd love to answer them. But I hope you've enjoyed this material. And like I said, We Are Resilient is here for you. It's here for all the parents that you work with. And please contact me if you have any questions, or if you're welcome to raise your hand right now, chat. Thank you so much for coming today. I just really appreciated your presence. Yeah, have a great day, and I will wish you good resilience.